Guys, I hope I am visible. And so it's almost 5:05. So we will be starting now. I hope, yeah. So fine. So hello and very good evening, everyone. My name is Raj Malik, and I will be your host for this evening. So I am from FailTell, and for those of you who are attending this webinar for the very first time, and I must give you a brief about FailTell, what FailTell is all about. So FailTell is a digital platform that offers a wide range of services, which is helping people to building careers and dealing with everyday concerns for personal, emotional, and professional growth. So actually, we offer a lot to our people, and now it's up to you guys to explore it. And it's very easy to explore, by the way. You can directly type in FailTell in any of our social handles, including Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn. And of course, don't forget to visit our website, that is failtell.com. I believe we have got an honest audience in the house, and they will definitely like to reflect how FailTell is working and what FailTell is all about. Okay, guys, so moving on. This week, we take you to another world which is full of path-breaking and revolutionary areas in today's world, that is analytics and data science. This words might have been a buzzword for you during COVID times because it was lot in, and we all are desperate to know how this analytics and data science industry works. What are the pathway to take to end up a career like this? So there are a lot of questions in our mind, and for that, of course, we need an expert. And who can be better expert than Mr. Raunak Thomas? So yeah, I must give a brief introduction about Mr. Raunak Thomas, who is our special guest for this webinar today. So Raunak has worked in MuSigma for almost 4 years, and he has been one of the excellent personality in the analytics industry. And from there on, in Novartis for next 5 years, and he has been working in this Novartis industry now also. So yeah, I would like to welcome our guest, Mr. Raunak Thomas. Hello, Raunak. Please address our people. The platform is all yours now. Raunak, are you there? Hello. Yeah. Hello, Raunak, are you there? Okay. Just a minute. We are facing some technical issues. Guys, if some of your friends are joining yet, so tell them please to join as soon as possible. We are about to begin. So yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Raunak, you are audible now. Yeah, you're a bit faint. Your voice is a bit faint, but yeah, you're audible.
Okay, just a second. Is it better now? Is it clear?
Yeah, it's perfect now. It's perfect. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this session. It's great to see that there are so many people and who are interested in learning about analytics and trying to go into this career path, which I think is quite a developing career, at least right now in this age. So first of all, I'm sorry I'm not able to join on video. So I'm in a place where the internet connection is quite poor. So I just dialed in from my phone. But because of that, I don't know how many people are there right now. And if anybody raises their hand or something, please, coordinators, please stop me whenever somebody does. All right. So analytics, that I think is the buzzword that you can hear everywhere. And let me tell you why analytics as a field on a whole has been growing like crazy, and why it's, I would say, one of those fields that maybe in the next 10 years would continue to grow. Number one, I think you folks might have already heard this, that data is the new oil, right? So that is very true. I have been in this field for about 7-8 years, and I have seen companies that have been prioritizing data like never before. I think all of you can see everywhere around you, it's becoming so much cheaper to process data, to store data, and to get meaningful insights from it. And because of this, what happens is that many companies are starting to go more and more digital, and they are in turn investing in the infrastructure required to make the digital leap. And the thing with that is that once the digital infrastructure is set up to actually capture all the data, then you can have a lot of these business analysts and data scientists who can then start crunching the data and figuring out a different sort of insights from it, and helping the businesses drive any business decision which would be based off data. So if you really think about it, in the past, companies, they had CEOs and they had area business leads, etc., who would be the people who are the eyes on the field, who are essentially giving the CEO insight into what's happening. But now what's happening is all these decisions are driven from the backend by data scientists and business analysts, because they have access to a plethora of data. So with that quick introduction about business analytics and data science as a whole, let me introduce myself as well. So I'm Raunak, and as they kindly pointed out, I was part of MuSigma for about 3.5 years or so. And let me just give a little more of a detailed introduction to this. So I started my career as a trainee decision scientist at MuSigma, fresh out of college from NIT Rourkela. And there, MuSigma is more of a startup. So I started right from, individual contributor, and then individually grew to be in a state where I was handling a $1 million account over there for a very large pharma retailer. In between, I supported some other pharma companies as well, as who were the clients of MuSigma. And that's why we have this onshore, offshore sort of model. Post that, I got an opportunity to move to Novartis. And Novartis, by the way, for those who don't know, is a very large Swiss-based pharma manufacturer. And there I was part of the brand analytics team supporting Cosentix, which is a billion, actually multi-billion-dollar brand now. And there I got the chance to work very closely with the brand analysts to help build that journey for Cosentix. And I got to, travel to US and work closely even with people over there to implement our initiatives on the ground. Post that, right now, I'm working with another team called Aura in Novartis, where we are essentially scaling augmented real-time analytics across the Novartis organization. So it's been an exciting journey, and there's a lot that I've learned in the past. And at least over the past, even within my short 7-year sort of period of work experience, even within that, at least at Novartis, I have seen how much the company as a whole has pledged to go digital. And that's where I come from, this experience of watching the analytics field grow, and which is why I'm saying that it is right now the right time for, I would say, any person to enter this field, especially because of the COVID, what's happening is that many more companies who were not willing to go digital have been pushed into the digital age a little in advance itself, just because there is this need where there are employees who are already working from home. There are, let's say, the field sales members who cannot go and physically meet, let's say, their clients. So that's where there are a lot of these digital initiatives that almost every company has been taking up. All right, so that's a little bit of a high level introduction about me, and I can talk a little more detail about certain parts if you like, if anybody has any specific question, and maybe during the entire discussion, we have another 45 minutes. Probably I'll touch upon a couple of these topics as well. So then now when we talk about analytics and we talk about the different domains that are available, there are analytics is almost, it's penetrated almost all the domains that I know of. Like I have friends in banking, I have friends who are in airline industries, I have friends in retail, e-commerce, pharma, and even like physical brick and mortar stores based retail, etc. So I would say right now almost all the companies which have let's say maybe 1,000 plus employees are definitely going to be having a significant brand analytics or data scientists in the backend who are kind of supporting this. Now, one thing you should just understand is that whenever you are making a career decision into moving into data analytics, I would say maybe there are maybe 2 or 3 types of analytics that are typically happening in companies. So one is, I would say, the most common, which is an offshore on-site based model, where companies like, most of the companies actually, like any of these startups like MuSigma, VS, etc., they would be providing analytics as a service and would be having, let's say, on-site presence, which is in the client office, which could be anywhere, Dublin, US, Australia, where there would be physical representatives of the company who would be going and understanding the requirements from the companies and the clients, and making sure that they communicate that to an offshore team, which is typically in India, because it's much more cheaper for them to hire a lot of more people in India. And in India, it's very easy to get smart people as well. But in foreign countries, most of them would be picked up by Google at insane salary. So that's where what happens is we have an India-based team which is running the entire operations practically day in and day out. But instead of them directly reaching out to clients, there would be somebody who will be liaising between them, which would be one on-site. And typically, this is what external vendors like VS and MuSigma, etc., would be providing as a service. The other thing is directly working with, very closely with the clients over there on site. And this typically happens when the setup is maybe a smaller team where they don't require a lot of analysts to crunch the data. So that's why it doesn't make sense to have like a full-fledged on-site offshore model. And I would say maybe some smaller companies, in fact, right now, all the companies that I know are kind of going this offshore on-site model itself, but maybe some smaller companies which don't have a lot of data analytics would be having that. And then I would say the third sort of way usually this model works would be some project-based analytics. Like maybe that will be long-term support, not the first one which I was talking about, which would be FTE-based model, and FTE stands for full-time employees, by the way. So in this long-term sort of engagement that they have, they would do something like, let's say, Walmart. They have a pricing backend which is controlling their entire inventory pricing and handling all the let's say discounts that come up that are supposed to be happening in any sort of sales period, and making sure that if there's excess inventory in some place, to clear inventory also you need to adjust the prices, etc. So they might be having a backend model to completely make sure it's data driven. So people might work on a project where they will build a data science model to make some predictions and make sure maybe they have like a front end and build the entire pipeline from the data source to the final front end, which is going to be visible to, let's say, customers who are going to Walmart to buy something, which will show you the exact prices. So, yeah, this I would say is the key ways different companies work, and each of them have pros and cons. So for you as an individual, when you are trying to make a decision into joining one of these, then I would say it kind of boils down to two questions. Number one, do you want to join a startup or a smaller company versus a large multinational? Number two, do you want to go in business analytics or do you want to go into data science? So let me talk about the first one, because the second one can kind of be a segue into the next sort of topic I wanted to talk about. So number one, startup versus a large multinational. So I've worked in both, by the way. MuSigma was more of a startup, although now it has a lot of employees. But still, they function very much like a startup. And Novartis is a multinational company. So the pros of working in a startup is that you can learn and grow like crazy. There is absolutely no way you can grow that fast in a large company, period. And to give you an example, when I joined MuSigma, within around 3 years, I was leading a 8-member team, handling a $1 million account on my own. And for a fresher to do the same at Novartis, I am sure it's going to take them, I don't know, maybe 8 years at the minimum, around. And even then, they would have a lot of oversight from their bosses, who would be, so I would say to have complete control over that $1 million engagement sort of thing, you would have to have an experience of around 10 years, which is something that you can get within 3 years. So that's where there is definitely an accelerated learning curve for sure. But of course, there are disadvantages. Typically, the smaller company has less stability. I mean, if you're going for a really small startup, then stability is an issue. Number two, usually it's going to be pretty stressful. Working hours might not be that great. You might be working very often on weekends, and even on weekdays, it will be very normal to work like maybe 12 hours or more than that. And in fact, I remember, I can give you an example. So there was one client which was a UK-based retailer, and at that time, I was actually called in to do the firefighting, as we call it, like when there's a big problem in the team which needs to be fixed, and maybe somebody who will be a little more senior would become brought in to kind of clean up the mess. So that's what we call firefighting. So yeah, I came to do the firefighting over there, and it was so bad that we had people in the team who go home only maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Okay, like every alternate day or every 3 days they would go home, and it's crazy working like that. Like literally, they'll be spending the entire time at work. They will maybe order food and eat over there, sleep on a bean bag, or maybe in MuSigma at least, we used to have a few beds so you could sleep there, but most people would just choose to sleep on their beanbag. And I remember there was once one guy, when I was going him, he was at around 4 a.m. or something, I was going home, and then he was not going to go home, so he basically told me, "Yaar, Raunak ghar ja raha hai, to please ek dio la dena, please." So it can get really difficult. I'm not saying it's always difficult in startups, but and in fact, I would not even say that it's always difficult in MuSigma per se. Like certain teams in MuSigma are very different from what I'm talking about. But if you want to learn at an accelerated growth, you have to be ready to slog. And maybe I'm sure most of you are, still college students or maybe fresh out of college. So it's probably going to be more slogging than college. I can tell you that much, because in college, nobody was paying you money to get that work done. And now when you have an environment where you're getting paid and whoever does the most work is going to get paid more, you're going to have a lot of, you could be in a state where there's a lot of competition. So yeah, that is about working in a startup. So, honestly, in my opinion, as a fresher, you should always try to work hard. You should always try to choose a place where it's going to be challenging, because what happens is that once you build your career in the beginning, then it's much easier to kind of continue later. But once in the initial years of your career, if you start chilling, then it's just going to be on your resume and it shows up. Honestly, I'm telling you, it always shows up. If you think you can just fake through it in an interview, it rarely happens. I mean, some people, of course, manage to do it, but it's not that difficult to catch it. Like now in Novartis, I'm interviewing candidates. So I think almost every week I'll be interviewing at least one or two candidates. So to interview one or two candidates, I might be seeing another couple of extra resumes. So there will be a lot of resumes that anybody who interviews you would be going through. So it's not so easy to fake experience, especially if the interviewer has enough time to grill you. So yeah, long story short, my advice is that don't be too scared of blogging. In fact, don't be too finicky about the exact package, the CTC that you get, because many times, at least in the initial part of your career, maybe you might get like 10% less or whatever, but it's always worth joining a company where you can get to learn more, where you might be paid whatever, some 25% less or 50% less. It's totally worth it, because otherwise, what I have seen a lot of my friends, what happens is that you just kind of, if you go into more of that cushiony sort of job, you just tend to just kind of stick on and stagnate there, because you always look at your salary and you look at how much you can get when you go somewhere else. And imagine, let's say, as a fresher, you joined a company like Google, for example. Okay. And no offense to Google or anything. I mean, they do good work in a lot of places, but Google does have a lot of these cushiony sort of jobs where there's not too much of work. They'll hire really smart people to get that done. It's very difficult to get into a place like Google. But once you're in, from the company perspective, it's very difficult to hire new people, and resignations hurt them a lot. So that's why they would make sure that they are the market leaders in pay, irrespective of whether they're making you work a lot or not. So then, let's say if you've been in Google for 5 years, you might not have got a lot of work. You might be enjoying life for sure. You're definitely getting paid more than your peers. But then if you ever want to leave Google, imagine you look around and you'll find that any other company that you want to go to is going to pay you less. Number two, any other company that you want to go to will be expecting so much more from you, because they will be comparing your resume with a person who's been in a startup for 5 years, and it's going to be very difficult for you to justify the amount you learn compared to the person in the startup. And like, why will you want to go to a place where you have to slog more and get paid less, right? You'll just get used to your life. So then you kind of tend to stick on to these sort of companies. So yeah, what I would say is just be careful when you are starting a career. Just make a conscious decision to prioritize learning over chilling, prioritize learning over, I mean, it's not like always prioritize learning over pay, but don't keep pay as the highest criteria. That would be my suggestion. Now, if we talk about the next part, which I was talking about, the second.
Raunak,
Yeah.
am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So you said very nicely, like how we can focus on choosing on the companies in the initial years of our life after graduation. So Raunak, could you just explain like how you land up in an analytics company, like how the profile is being built? Look, because many of the people are in college, so they are interested to know how we can build that profile. So if you could just throw some light on that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So see, in a way, that's bringing me to my second topic, which is essentially the second decision that you need to make, which is business analytics versus data science. And when you're comparing, and let me just give a high level overview of that, and then we can talk about the skill set for that. So business analytics is where you are helping, let's say, close to real time, or maybe being very agile around data and making sure you have, let's say, you're able to get ad hoc work done. Today, for example, if your brand of interest suddenly goes down in market share, then how do you address that? What do you tell your field representatives to do right now, as of now? Do you tell them that, okay, focus on this area, or start making sure that you are targeting whatever patients or people who are within the 20 to 25 age bracket, because that's where we are losing most of our share, things like that. That is more of business analytics. The second piece is data science. And the data science is where you will be all those cool terms that you've heard of, which is AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning. You will algorithmically try to either find patterns or try to make predictions, or try to do, let's say, there are many different things you can do, but try to, let's say, do some sort of campaign evaluation, etc. So now, when you compare the two, the second thing, data science, is what most people sought, because that's where, if you manage to get into data science, usually the pay is very high with business analytics, and you're probably going to be working with maybe smarter people, because it's difficult to get into data science. And what do you say, at least in the initial part of your career, data science can definitely pay you much more than business analytics. But when you're talking about these two fields, business analytics, you should remember, is a much larger field than data science. And the skills that you require in business analytics is going to be a combination of business knowledge and the technical part of it, which is, let's say, programming. And in fact, I would also say business analytics requires a lot of this storytelling and communication of your ideas as well, which is also an important, yeah. Did someone say something? Okay, I'll just continue. So, yeah, when you talk about business analytics versus data science would require you to be more of a technical expert. There are so many different AI and ML models and algorithms that you need to be aware of, and you will be like maybe typically working in more of the back end sort of thing, like more of long-term projects where you have data. In a couple of months you're trying to build a machine learning model to, like the previous example that I was talking about, build a pricing model for Walmart, for example. So as a fresher, to when you're talking about these two fields, for data science, I think from a programming point of view, the first thing to learn is Python. And there's always an alternative, by the way, R. But I would say Python, Python and R can kind of be used for the same thing. For any of these machine learning algorithms, they usually have one package in R and one package in Python, which mostly do the same thing. But the advantage of Python is that it's much more widely adopted as a whole, because not only is it used for data science, but it's also used in a lot of places for web development and the back end of any of these websites and fetching the data, etc. So that's where for data science, I would say the first thing you should know is Python. Second is you should start maybe doing a lot of these courses. There are lots and lots of data science courses, honestly, where you can start off with something like linear regression, logistic regression, etc., basic clustering, then start to learn on some of these other linear and the non-linear sort of functions that are in the back end of it. Learn how to build these ensemble models to make predictions, and maybe go beyond just k-means clustering. Understand how data can be cleaned, because that's also a very important part of data science. Like imputation of simple imputation of values, or maybe how do you kind of build dummy data for some sort of model that you have. Then all this is more of prediction, but you also have a different field for NLP, which is natural language processing. And then we also have image classification, which will be like image classification, image identification, etc., which would be something like Flipkart in the backend. Like for their inventory, they, instead of manually tagging it to keywords all the time, they'll be having algorithms to automatically tag it, stuff like that. And maybe some sort of computer vision based algorithms, which would be something like webcam, which would be trying to track the number of people in the crowd or the number of people who are going through one gate, problems like that. So that's where I would say the first thing is learn Python, go into Coursera or any of these large websites like there's LinkedIn Learning, and I don't know, now I don't really recollect right now, but there are a lot of these, they call it massively online platforms, MMO something, I forget that acronym right now, but just Google Coursera or any of its competitors. So you can essentially register for free, do a course over there, add that to your skills on LinkedIn, and hopefully that should help you, let's say, get a job in data science. The second thing is business analytics. Now, in business analytics, I think the very, very basic thing that every single person should learn is SQL. which is a programming language that is essentially used to wrangle data, or in other words, manipulate data from whatever database backend that you have, and query it and manipulate it and get it the way you require for analytics, or sometimes even get it the way data scientists require as a backend. And SQL, by the way, is really easy. I mean, it seems really easy, and it honestly is, as long as you understand the concepts. But if you don't know SQL, it's a very big handicap. It's in fact not just in business analytics, but even in data science, knowing SQL gives you an edge. And the second thing is, again, this sounds easy and most people think they know Excel, but Microsoft Excel, that is something that can be pretty powerful when you're trying to, I don't know, build simple dashboards, just work with data really fast by knowing all the shortcuts, by knowing each and every function and all the commonly known formulas, the basic sort of dashboarding on Excel, which might require a little bit of VBA, which is the backend coding on Excel, etc. And yeah, in a sense, Microsoft Excel. And here, I would say, if you want to learn, number one, try doing some tasks on Excel, try working with data sets, and whenever you do, always look for shortcuts, because I mean, you're going to use Excel no matter, even in fact, if you're not in analytics as a whole, even if you're in some other field altogether, as long as you work with a computer, you're probably going to use Excel sometime in your life. So it's more of a life skill than a skill specifically for business analytics. And then it's just a matter of knowing the commonly used formulas, and if you want to go above and beyond, learn a little bit of VBA, which is Visual Basic for Application. Then in business analytics, the other thing that you can learn is some sort of BI tool, a business intelligence tool, which is just used for visualizing data. And there are multiple options. If you think of the commonly used ones in the field that at least I see and I've heard of, it would be Power BI, Tableau, maybe Click, and what else? Then there are others, but those are not so common. But I would say in terms of market share and how commonly it's used, it would be Power BI, Tableau, mostly Power BI and Tableau, and maybe ClickSense. And then, of course, there are some other niche ones, which is like MicroStrategy and stuff like that. But let's not just go there. Like, if you want to make yourself a well-rounded person, just choose Power BI or Tableau, one of them, and you can get one BI tool under your belt. And then, other than that, if you want to go a little more above and beyond, you can try to learn one of these ETL tools, which is essentially used to transform data and build a data pipeline, very commonly used by, let's say, some application development and even in business analytics. And this is more of like maybe a little bit more of a point and click sort of way of working with data. And there, I would say some commonly used ETL tools would be Alteryx for sure. Alteryx, and then, yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Actually, we have received a question from one of our audience that how to justify that to the employees, like if you are from a field of like civil and mechanical, like core branches, but you are interested for business analyst, then how can you tell the recruiter that you are specifically interested for this profile?
Honestly, as a fresher, just do any of these courses on that I'm talking about, like SQL and what do you say? If you want to go into business analytics, SQL. If you want to go into data science, Python. And then if you want to go above and beyond, then of course join some of these Kaggle or any of the similar websites competitions where and that's mostly for data science, but there would be a lot of these online free competitions that you can register for, where people will be competing to build a model that's kind of beating a certain level of accuracy, etc. So as a fresher, I would say that is definitely going above and beyond. But from building your resume and making it a little more well-rounded, it would be basically SQL, Python.
Yeah, thank you, Raunak, for your insights on that. Raunak, actually, I have a follow-on question to it. Like, as you said, there are a lot of websites and a lot of people who are interested to teach this subject of Python and SQL, and there are various courses available. So it's not about the lack of information which we are having. We are having overflow information when it comes to data science and analytics. So how to like filter this out? Like, this is a personal question from my side.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is a lot of resources. That's true, and that kind of shows you how broad the field is and how much there is to learn. So, see, if you're a fresher, I would say that it's difficult to pick and choose out of that. But if once you have a little bit of work experience, then what I do is I build experience according to the company that I'm targeting. Like if I know that this is the sort of company I want to go to, then I would learn the tools and technologies that are right now being used by that company. And again, from that angle, like if nothing, this SQL and Python are always a safe bet. There are always going to be other niche things that companies use, like a lot of these pharma companies use SAS. A lot of some companies that started on data science a little earlier, they use a lot of R. So depends if you want to do that. And then if you want to go a little more of the visualization route, you can also use some of these BI tools that are available. But as a fresher, the first thing is get some solid, course that is, if, by the way, if you're going for a SQL course and any of these other programming languages that are based off SQL are all the same, like Hive and Spark, etc. Like they're all based off SQL itself. So I would say just go for basic SQL and go for a little more of an exhaustive course, which is not just talking about joins on SQL, but is also going and talking about partitioning by how to index the columns and how to optimize your queries, etc. Then if you are looking for a course on Python, I mean, there are a lot of options. Again, you can look at any of these Coursera, etc. type of website. Go for something that is a little reputed, like the commonly known ones, Analytical Vidya, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. I think there are a couple of others which right now I'm not able to recall. And in those, make sure the Python that you're learning is for analytics. Like there is Python that is required by web developers also, and that is not relevant for business analysts. Like there would be courses which would be talking a lot about the Python data structures. Let's say a lot about looping data in Python and stuff like that. Like for data scientists, running a linear what do you say? Linear predictive algorithm, which is a linear regression, is actually just a one-line code in Python. So you don't really need to know too much of Python to be able to implement that. And there's a lot of stuff that you can Google and figure out, because Python has a lot of documentation that's available online. So all you need to know is enough Python to be able to manipulate data a little bit, know how to import data, how to load it, etc. So if you're ever looking for a Python course, I would recommend it should be more of look for a data science course which is based on Python. Okay. Learning Python per se might not really be required. Like, let's say if you have a data science course which is going to teach you linear regression, etc., and they have specifically mentioned that the course material is going to be on Jupyter Notebooks, which is the same as Python, go for that sort of course instead of, let's say, a full-fledged Python. So yeah, maybe that could give a little bit of filtering, but honestly, there are a lot of websites. Just Google and then see which courses are highly ranked and what people are doing right now, and then you can just take one of those.
Raunak, that was really great from you to hear. So Raunak, actually we have another question from one of the participants, that many of the companies are actually using third-party tools like for analytics purpose. Like let's say, for example, the participants also informed that Novartis might be using ServiceNow and IT360 for and takes the help of Tableau and spreadsheet Python. So they are asking, like, should we focus on the third-party tools or the mother skills? So what should be the focus?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit, so I didn't fully understand that question. Would you just repeat?
Yeah, please, I will definitely do it. One of the questions come from the participants, and there's a ask like, does the company use the data analytics tools of their own, or they are using the help of third-party tools? Like, taking an example, like for Novartis, the participant has also said that they might be using ServiceNow and IT360. So we should be focusing on the third-party tools or the mother skills. Which one we should be focusing?
Yeah, so I didn't catch that exact example that you were talking about, but I get the question now. So yes, it's true that the thing is, analytics is still a very vague sort of field. Like everything under the sun is that's related to data comes under analytics. So, and of course, right now what's happening is that many companies, they're instead of like I said, some companies sell the service of business analytics, but there are many other companies that are selling products per se, and that's where let's say something like SAP itself, it's more of a product which has a lot of packages within it. And VS also has their incentive comps calculators and stuff like that. So as a fresher, I would definitely say that it's too much of a risk to go and specialize in one of these tools, because none of these tools have gained so much of market share that it's just commonly used every single place. So my personal advice is that you should be, at least in the beginning of your career, more of a generalist and learn the basics, like let's say SQL and Python, and a lot of stuff like, let's say Spark and Hive, etc. That's based off SQL. Python also, there is what's that called? Okay, I'm forgetting the name right now, but there'll be a lot of tools that are based off Python as well. So what happens is, if you learn Python, and of course, if you're going for a fully functional, if you're going to be working with one of, let's say, VSs, incentive comms calculator, then it's no longer relevant. Python is no longer relevant to you because it's fully packaged as a front end, interface. But if you think of it, if you learn how to use that VS tool, you will be able to switch to any other company where that tool is being used. But if that tool is not being used in the other companies, then you are in trouble, right? Because your experience is limited to just that tool. So that's why I would definitely recommend that at least for the first 3 years or so of your career, don't specialize in one of these tools. Try to work with the basics, SQL and Python. And then later on, you can just see in the field which are the tools that are commonly being used and start gaining exposure and expertise in that so that you can position yourself as an expertise in one of these platforms.
Thank you, Raunak. It was really nice that you have answered all the things which was being asked. And there are also one more question I would take from now. So like there are always a doubt, like one for the people have asked, like which project we should do in our college days, or it should be a mix of project, or that Kaggle we should be involving from the initial days of school. So what should be the mix? It should be the project from in startups or something, or directly diving into Kaggle and doing the stuff. So yeah, that is the question.
See, I would definitely recommend Kaggle. It's a little difficult for a fresher, to be honest. Like if you're just joining Kaggle for the heck of it and you are not getting any sort of significant results, then it's quite a waste of time and it's overwhelming. Yeah, there's a lot to learn. Like the people who top one of these competitions on Kaggle will be data scientists who have been in the field for 20 years. So how are you going to be anywhere close to them in that competition with no work experience, right? So what you would need to build is you need to build, let's say, a portfolio for yourself that you can then showcase to others. So that's where I think starting off a little small, starting off with just projects that, let's say, you get as a part of some course that you're learning, or maybe some project that's relevant to your, I don't know, final year project in college. That would be useful. Like I can give you an example. For example, although I studied biotechnology, I told my professor, my guide, that I'm not so interested in biotechnology and I would rather work on something that involves programming. So that's when I got my final year thesis was actually on a program that I created, which was a sort of a bioinformatics workstation that can help you connect to many databases. So I would say for a fresher, number one, if you're really sure you want to get into analytics, try to get an internship which is relevant to analytics. That really, really helps for sure. There are very few people who have done an internship on analytics whenever I look at all these resumes. And in that internship, if you can just learn SQL, that itself would be really great. Because see, learning Python and learning all these ML algorithms takes time. It's not something you can do in 2-3 months. Whereas SQL is something you can learn quite a bit within 2-3 months. SQL and Excel. So I would say that's how you can start, and then of course you can progress further based on the field that you want to take. All right. Is there any other questions?
No, not for now. You can continue.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think I covered a lot of topics on what do you say, the skills required, and uh, how do you switch from data science to business analytics, like what exactly you need for that. I think one more thing that I tell a lot of freshers is that uh, every single person wants to get into business analytics or data science. And because of that, there are hundreds of resumes that at least I have got. Like once I had posted that there's a requirement at Novartis in my team, and within 24 hours, I got more than 100 resumes. So you can imagine if I have to just open every single resume and just spend 1 minute on each, that's 100 minutes. It's like 1.5 hours, more than that, in fact, right? And if I want to recruit just one or two people in my team, why would I do that? I would never spend that much time. So that's where what really helps is number one, just getting your foot in the door. That as a fresher is really difficult. And different ways of getting your foot into the door is, and by that I mean, somebody in some way, you're not one of those 100 resumes that I received, but it is, let's say, in a smaller list of resumes that I received. And a couple of ways that can happen is, number one, if you're getting sort of like a campus placement, or your resume is getting filtered based on your college somehow. Number two is if you're getting a referral. And of course, getting a referral when you're a campus joinee is hard. But if there are many random people who I don't know who send me resumes, but there are very few people who I know who would be, I don't know, sending me a resume of their friend, right? And trust me, if there's somebody I know who's good, and if they are vouching for a campus hire, it goes a long way. I mean, it makes a good first impression, and it helps your resume to be viewed by one of whoever is going to be recruiting, right? So that's where I would suggest that it is very, very important to get a little bit of work experience. Like that first job or that first internship, etc., might be a little difficult to get. But even if it's, let's say, a low paying job, even if it's not something that you're really happy with, as long as it's something where you're going to be learning a bit, you're not just going to be refreshing a dashboard at the back end by just running the same code, then just take up that job, get that first work experience. Because for me, if there is zero work experience, I don't even look at that resume because it's just not worth it. Because there are just too many people like that. If there are people with work experience, I always filter on the company where they've got their work experience, because it's so much easier when you know that somebody is been in MuSigma or been in a ZS, where you know that they have been slogging for the last 1 or 2 years, and probably they've learned a lot. So that's where I would say just try to get your foot in the door somehow, and make sure it's of course in the direction you want to go. पैसा वैसा बाद में आ जाएगा यार. I mean, money is at least in the beginning of your career, in the first 2-3 years, unless you're getting paid like 5,000 a month or something, which also, by the way, if you're doing an internship, then that's not bad. Just don't look for the money unless you really need it financially. So yeah, I think those are mostly the high level things that I wanted to cover. But is there any specific point that you want to talk about, or any other questions that you have?
Yeah, Raunak, actually we have, I think this would be one last question because we are running out of time. So, so actually one of the participants has asked like what type of questions we can expect from companies which are visiting the premier institutes, and where can we find the samples like of those questions? Because there are a lot of sites, I believe. So he or she might have asked like which sources to refer for those sample questions. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, as a campus hire, like most companies have their own styles. Like, I don't think anybody expects you to know SQL or Python when they are recruiting from campus. And mostly when I recollect the days when I was a placement coordinator, at that time, all these companies, they would mostly have more of these logical based questions, like questions that you would get in an AIEEE, like some sort of these puzzles. And puzzles, there are like hundreds and hundreds of puzzles. You can maybe try Googling a couple of them, but the best way to kind of prepare for these puzzles, honestly, is just by giving interviews. As a fresher, that might be a little difficult to get those calls, but even if you don't, maybe talk to the people who have interviewed already, and they would know a lot of these puzzles. And honestly, even if you Google just puzzles, there's a lot of puzzles that you can get. And then there are some companies who also have more of a debate sort of round, which tries to evaluate whether you have any communication issues or not. So there, of course, I mean, knowing English well, being able to speak well helps. And that's where some of my friends, they've joined these organizations like, what's that name? I'm forgetting right now. Toastmasters, yes. Toastmasters, where it just kind of helps you become a better orator and be less shy when you are publicly speaking. Other than that, I would say if you have gone that path of going and doing some courses and learning something on SQL and Python, just remember that anybody who's going to interview you is probably has been working on it for the last 5 years. Okay. So don't try to, be jack of all trades. Try to be a master of one and try to focus your resume on that. If you've learned SQL, just specifically say that, okay, I know only these parts of SQL. Like for me, the biggest mood kill is when somebody starts mentioning that they know everything under the sun. And obviously, the moment I see everything under the sun on their resume, I will pick up, and if they say that they know everything well, I'll just pick up whatever I am strongest at. Okay. And if I've been working on it for the last 5 years, and if you've just done a course for 5 weeks, there's absolutely no way you'll be able to justify your experience, right? So as a fresher, I would say whatever you're learning, don't half-heartedly learn it. Make sure you know it well, and make sure your resume is structured so that it's able to portray your strength. In fact, maybe I'll just close with that another very important point that you need to remember is resumes are looked at by recruiters for less than 30 seconds. Seriously. Like, unless you're being interviewed to get shortlisted for that interview round, your resume will not be looked at for more than 2 minutes. And it's because I told you, right? Like within 24 hours, I got 100 resumes. So there's no way I can look at every resume properly. So people just skim through your resume, and that's where you have to be really smart, and you have to make sure that you are portraying and highlighting only your strengths. And one advantage to that is there is no fixed resume template per se, right? So because of that, you can focus on whatever you want. Like, for example, in college, my marks in the BTech weren't that great. because it wasn't that great, I didn't add my marks itself on my resume because that's not something I wanted to focus on, wanted people to focus on. Although you might see people's resume always showing the year of passing, their marks and stuff like that, there is no hard and fast rule. The only important thing while building your resume, I would say, is number one, use font and bold and maybe colors, but not a lot of people use colors. A black and white resume is totally fine as long as it's neat and clean. There is no grammatical mistakes. Things are aligned and they look visually appealing. And just highlight the parts that you want to portray. Like if you want to portray that you are a studious person and you have been a studious person, focus on that. Reorder your categories so that you put your education right on top, so that the first thing that they read is that, okay, this is a 9-pointer who got this AIR and AIEEE, etc. But if that's not what you want to highlight, if you want to highlight that you've done a lot of extracurricular, you've been leading a club in college, etc., focus on that. And maybe write a couple of points on that, stuff like that. So you get my point. Like you have to, your personality should come up from your resume, and don't build a resume by just getting a template from somewhere and then just editing those details and filling in your details. Like a smart resume should be customized to you, and the moment you put in effort on your resume, it shows. And that's, if you really think about it, the resume is the first impression. And I personally think that first impression is really important, and it sets the tone for the entire discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Raunak, for that question. And moreover, just to add on to that question, I would like to tell the participant that we also have a Slack channel where we post materials which are required for placement preparation and also various competitive examination. So guys, visit it. It's completely free of cost. You guys gonna enjoy it. So I believe, Raunak, you have covered all the points, and we can wrap this up, right? As we are running out of time. Raunak, is there anything?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. So Raunak, actually, thank you for taking out time, and it's been really an insightful webinar altogether. We learned a lot of stuff from you, and thank you for everything, Raunak. Yeah. So apart from that, I also like to extend my deepest thanks to ESL and ITR for collaborating with us and helping us to conduct this webinar. So I believe we have come to that part actually, and we have to wrap this webinar. And guys, I think that obviously this webinar is done for 1 hour period, but you have questions which are specific and you need answers to it. Questions which are left unanswered, it's not good. Raunak is also available as a career coach in our FailTell. So you can get direct insights from Raunak via FailTell. So don't miss that chance. We are providing all our career coaching and all our services at very nominal cost. So please visit our FailTell page. And as I said already, we gonna never never let you down. That's the promise from our side. So FailTell mein zarur aana hai. And thank you guys. You guys all have been an amazing audience, and we will be continuing with further webinars on various industries, maybe finance, maybe core industries. So don't worry about that. Just stay in our webinar group which you are there. And that's it from today. Good night and bye-bye. So I think, yeah, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. So guys, you guys can.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Raunak, thank you for coming to us. Yeah.